first thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank the National Honey Show Committee for inviting me here. I always think it's a great honour if you're a lecturer, if you talk about beekeeping, to be invited to give talks. I also want to thank you all for coming. You know, if you're a lecturer and you sit and there's 3 people in front of you, you know, it's nice that you took the time to join us this morning, so thank you very much indeed. Just to say about President of Apimondia, I have to say this because I think it's a great honour, not only for myself but for my family, but I feel it's a great honour for my federation and indeed for the beekeepers in Ireland. We probably are one of the smallest beekeeping nations in the world, and to get president, I feel it's a great honour. I have to say that the task at the moment is pretty daunting, but I'm hoping to get there. I was talking here yesterday and I'd said that the 2 mornings in the hotel I was getting honey. I'll be talking about honey later on, but little jar, and it wasn't honey at all. So I want to thank Betsy's Best Swanborn Honey. The lady left me a jar of creamed honey this morning for my breakfast, so I want to thank her very much for doing that. It was very nice to get a real jar of honey for your porridge. Just to explain, folks, I'm a 3rd generation beekeeper. It's probably there as well. But in 1896, my grandfather got 3 CDB hives, they're Congested District Board hives, from the British government. That was in 1896, and that was the year my father was born. Now, my grandfather, by all accounts, wasn't a great beekeeper, but my father was a different kettle of fish. He acquired his Bee Master Certificate in 1926 from a man called the Reverend J.G. Diggs, whose book I still have and one that my dad signed. So it was it's a lot of history there in the beekeeping. But one of the things my father used to say to me regularly, will you be a beekeeper or a keeper of bees? There is a subtle difference. In fact, there's a very big difference. But anyway, he operated a beekeeper a certain way. He read the books, but he also learned how to read the bees. And that's something everybody should learn to do. He had a great way of reading the bees. He could tell things. He used to tell them everything. And even heard a comment yesterday, I think it was from Peter Matthews or something, I can't remember who said it to me, but somebody had died and they put black cloth on top of the hives after the death. Well, actually, in my case, when my father died, I put bees into the grave with him, because that was his tradition. He had requested it. So I told the undertaker what I was going to do. He said, don't let them out. So but it was a sad occasion, but the bees went with him. But my system operation myself, I have to say, first and foremost, I'm a beekeeper. I mean, Apimondia is now, but and I think like a beekeeper, or at least I'd like to think I do, and I'd like to operate like a beekeeper. My modus operandi, you could call it, is I work national hives. Now, I have commercial, a few, and I have a Smith and something else. But I work national, and I work double brood boxes. And there's a reason for that. My dad used to say, the queen bee lays her nest like a hen egg standing in an egg cup. And if she's sufficient room in that symmetrical setup, she's very happy. So I find my double brood boxes the way to work. That's just me. He also said, and I'll said, we have a very important day in Ireland on the 17th of March called St. Patrick's Day, but he always had 3 supers under the roof before St. Patrick's Day. They were over the crown board, but they were there. In other words, he was saying it was better to be looking at them than looking for them. So he had them, and he could move the crown board as he went along, depending on the time of year and what the situation was like. Now, he always said that Ted Hooper in his book talks about beekeeping and swarms. And he said, he says, congestion and the age of the queen are your big problems there. Give the bees plenty of room, let them draw out plenty of wax, and you're a happy beekeeper. With the commercial over now, I'll start my talk here. I've stuck this up because I came across this recently, and it's a very important statement. You know, we're really losing our bees at a ferocious rate. Maybe not so much in this part of the world, but in other parts of the world it is really bad. And I travel extensively. In fact, when I leave here now, I'm heading to Stansted to go off to Turkey. And it's really bad situation. In Turkey, they're getting it difficult at the moment as well. But in Turkey, they have other problems. They don't always see the problems that's sitting in front of them. And I hope to explain some of those today. But last year in the United States, between 30 and 70% of bees disappeared in different parts of the United States. 70% loss is a huge loss of bees. Like, to have the bees that need a weather for pollination. But then you see a lot. Is there anybody here from America, by the way? Just be honest, good to check. Have we any American beekeepers? No? Well, again, I'm back to the situation where are you a beekeeper or a keeper of bees? I mean, if you move thousands of colonies across the states for pollination, you know, it's a big problem. But we're losing, like 80% of our crops are pollinated. Everything out there is pollinated. And 80% of that, I mean, the whole biodiversity system, the one is crashing. It really is. I give the example of the bug test. I was used to say 15 years ago in Ireland, if I drove from Dublin to Galway on a hot summer's day, when I get to Galway, my first job would be to wash my windscreen. I can drive around Ireland twice now and I don't have to wash my windscreen at all. So other insects are good. It's not just honeybees. The whole biodiversity is going. Now, I give this called Can Science Save Our Bees? Now, I don't have the answer, but I'm giving you, seeing where Apimondia comes into the situation. I'm not sure that we can do it, but we have to work that direction, and that's the target I've given myself, to try and improve the situation, not just right across the globe by getting people who's supposed to know what they're doing tell us what the answers are. But there's a number of main problems that we have, and I've listed them here as, well, colony, the bee mortality is a major one at the moment, and then we have honey adulteration. That is a major issue, folks, across the world. I mean, China is exporting honey, rubbish, out of China, and buying top quality honey back in for themselves. So people who are dealing with honey are actually bringing it in. And when I was in Dubai a week or two ago, that was what was happening. I just couldn't believe the scale of it, but it's a big problem for us. Now, the regulations can be good and bad. We have more coming at us, and governments are getting involved. But the thing about regulations, I don't mind a good regulation, provided it's written by somebody who knows something about beekeeping. The problem we have sometimes is people write regulations who know nothing at all. They're associating us with cattle or bovine or something else. They're not associated with honeybees. So it can be good and bad, so we are dealing with that as well. Production costs, of course, affect everybody. I mean, it depends on the scale of your operation, but costs are going up for everybody. So we're trying to, you said, what can you do about that? It's a big problem for people. But this is, I think, less and less young beekeepers. I mean, there's a lot of us of my vintage, I have to say, around, and there are now programs in different countries for young beekeepers, and these are to be welcomed. In Ireland, we have a lot of our associations have observation hives that they bring into our local schools. I'm sure that's happening here as well, but it's something we should try to develop. Bring the observation hive into the local school, because you're sowing the seed to the children about beekeeping. It's a great way to go. You can put it on television, you can Google it, you can do it like, but it doesn't actually. Showing them the bees in an observation hive is really the answer. In fact, Google is fantastic. The kids, everywhere you go now, they're clicking. I mean, sometimes even the remote control of the telly is a difficult thing for me. I'm trying to have an Apple TV at home and I can't work it at all. I have to get the young, grandson had to come in and get it sorted out for me. It's really bad. But one thing I'll tell you about Google. Google's very interesting. I was told this yesterday. In Ireland recently, there was a priest who went into a school. Kids were going for first communion. And they asked them some questions. Now, these were kids that were, 8 years of age, 7 years of age. And they asked a simple question from the Bible. And the kids just stared at them. And it was quite a simple. He thought, does anybody know the answer? And this wee fella put up his hand. He says, Father, why don't you Google it? So he thought Father didn't know it either. So Google does that for us all. Is this thing moving on? And there we are. Now, one of the greatest things for beekeepers, you come back to your hive and see your bees dead. This is really a bad situation. And so we have to ask what's causing it. A few years ago I was in France and I saw bees on sunflowers. Sunflower field's a beautiful picture. It's really a lovely picture, sunflowers. But the beekeeper, and it wasn't a very big field, but the ground where the beehives were was a carpet of dead bees. The bees were sucking the nectar and flying away from the flower as if they were drunk, and then collapsing on the ground to die. And I spoke to the farmer and I said, what happens to sunflowers? It was being pressed to make sunflower oil for us to cook with. And yet it was killing the bees. Now, when we educated the farmer, that has changed now dramatically. So that doesn't happen anymore. I think that's only about 6 years ago now at this stage, 5 years ago maybe. But it was a big change. But the farmer now began to realize, and the problem is really pesticides and insecticides. That's a lot of the problem. It's, whether we like it or not, and the chemical companies are hammering me at the moment. I'm certainly public enemy number one with a lot of the chemical companies for some of the stuff I'm saying, but the evidence is there. I mean, the people who spray at this level across the world, the sprays were out there, we need to know what they are, but they're very good for the farmers and very good, but I think our farming community are not aware of some of the dangers that are happening with them. But this here is the situation. These seeds are coated in a fertilizer and in an insecticide. The fertilizer drives it up, the insecticide stops the bugs in the ground from eating it. But that what's left, the residue in the ground then stays in the water table. It's going to wash down into the water table and then we eat the crops. So it's a big problem for us. Dr. Van Matten in France a number of years ago did you see DDT is the top on the list there. He did a test about toxicity to bees, and using DDT as the top one, what he said was 27,000 nanograms will kill one bee. But if you go to the bottom then, clothinidine, 4 nanograms of clothinidine will kill 6,500 bees. The 4 off the bottom, the fipronil is not the one, but the other 3, the 3 bottom ones apart from fipronil, they're the ones that were banned by the European Food Safety Authority. When the ban was proposed in Europe, in the European Parliament in 2013-14, most of the ministers, in the Parliament, you see, you have to get a majority decision in a vote. And when the Ministers for Agriculture voted, the proposed ban, they wanted to vote to bring the ban in, some wanted to leave it, didn't want a ban. The British minister voted against the proposed ban, and so did the Irish minister. But then we got to him. But because they hadn't a majority, they had to have a second vote. And the second vote, they didn't have a majority either. But our minister the second time round abstained, which was as good as voting in the way we wanted. But then it got so bad, the European Food Safety Authority then has to step in, and it overrode the Parliament. And it brought the ban in. But the pressure today by the chemical companies to have the ban lifted is astronomical. It is, their MEPs are coming under serious pressure. And the Parliament itself. So it's a big issue for us. Trying to keep that ban in place. Hopefully it will work. I'm not sure that it will, but we're doing our very best. Last year here in the UK in 2015, I don't know if maybe somebody knows about this already, but one of these wanted to be lifted, the clothinidine one. They wanted to lift that to treat cabbage worm or cabbage and something in the cabbage. But when the time they got it lifted, it had gone past the time to spray. It was useless. But David Cameron did lift it for 3 months. But by the time he lifted it, it was completely useless. But the door was opened. That's the problem. And we're worried about it for sure. Of course, for Varroa we have, as you know, the pupa and the adult bee, everything is hit. I would like to think in Apimondia, and this is where I'm targeting in the moment. Huge research is taking place in many excellent universities across the world. The difficulty I have is getting the answers, or finding where they are. I have this idea, I'd love to get them all together, bring them into one room and say, listen guys, here's the money. Come up with a solution for Varroa. But they're all working independently. They're not coming together, and this is not a good way to work, I think. But then you see there's finance involved, and there's grants involved, and they're afraid of losing grants, and there's all the things involved, there's people employed. It's a whole conglomerate out there. But sorting the Varroa problem would help a lot of beekeepers. Now, another problem we have, of course, too, is my dad always told me that honeybees need a stable diet of 7 to 8 pollens, different pollens per day for a stable diet. Can you imagine living on white bread for 4 to 5 weeks? Well, that's what we're asking our bees to do when we bring them to a location to pollinate where there's nothing else growing. So the loss of pollen is a big problem for our bees. And of course, this thing we don't like, there's not a bit of it in there for the bees at all. If you take a situation that in Russia where I was, there were 9 combine harvesters in a field, step by step, harvesting wheat. Each of them had 3 trailers to collect. But there wasn't a hedge or another flower or anything in any direction. It was just an amazing sight to see, like steps of stairs in the field. So it's an issue for us. Colony management, stress is a problem. This is the States, a picture of the United States. And this here is California, where the almond crop, it states at the bottom here that 1.2 million hives are required to pollinate almonds from the middle of January to the end of February into March every year. Now in 2016, the figure of hives available for that pollination was just over 700,000. So they had dropped that many. They need 1.2 million on average. That's what the Americans tell us. But if you can picture the scene, and this is me speaking just as a beekeeper. Take the beekeeper in Florida who's bringing these bees across, and I actually know the beekeeper, and I've spoken to him about this, and he says he accepts it. The stress of moving his bees from Florida to California, he packs the bees in the trucks here, and they head off, and they drive all night, and then they pull up in the morning, and they park the truck, and the bees then come out, oh, yes, we don't live here, and they start setting up flight paths for themselves, start working for the day. And then that night they go in, the truck hooks up and off it goes to the next stop the next morning. The bees go, we don't live here. And they start it all over again. So 5 or 6 days later, they land in California, stressed out completely. So it's a big issue. So we're talking to them about that. Now, it's a situation, it's a difficult situation because they get money by pollination. And the hives are weighed, empty, and then the crop provider, the crop, whatever the crop is, he weighs the hive and weighs his bees, so he knows how many bees he's getting. That's how they measure it. By the way, there's 4,000 bees per pound weight, if anybody's interested, and that's the useless statistic. This is a picture here. These are like hailstones on the ground. Beehives in the one spot. This is actually in Turkey. It's a huge number of beehives in the one area. At the present time in Turkey, there's a beautiful crop of pine honey coming in, and that's where we're heading for the weekend. But it's a great honey crop to have out there. But again, a lot of hives in the one spot is not a very good idea. Too many hives together, there's not enough food for the bees. Climate change, of course, affecting us all greatly. If you take it this year, in July and August in Ireland, rains came, and we didn't really get much honey in that part. But then it comes September. My double brood box, I couldn't lift a hive at the moment. They're full of ivy. It's chock-a-block. And any double box that has a super is full of ivy as well. So the seasons is moving. Look at today. We're now into almost, the hour's about to change. It's going to change tonight, I think. And the temperature is 16 and 17 degrees outside. I mean, it's like a spring day. It's just, it's not what I don't think, well, it's not what I'm used to. Maybe you're used to it here, I don't know, but not for me. But there's big problems with climate change for our bees as well. But there are a whole range of issues now affecting us. And if you look at them all, put them all together, you have the beekeeper, you have people out there, you have the beekeepers here. This is an ordinary spray of primly out there in the garden. What's this? Flowers, towers, the whole lot round together. And then when you link them together, the poor old bees in the middle of them all. And the synergies between all these things is affecting our honeybee. But it's not just the honeybee, it's other insects as well. Everything is affected. So there's a big linkage there. And, you know, water availability in some places. Then we have a difficulty with our wax. I mean, some of the guys who spray, you see them now in their tractors, on their, you know, they're putting out. I find it interesting that somebody treats a hive and they have to wear a mask. You know, if I think about it long enough, you're going to treat your hive and you're wearing a mask. So what are you doing your bees? It's a question, I don't know the answer, but it's a question I ask myself. I'm wearing a mask to treat my bees, and it's full of honey. So I'm just wondering about, there's things that make me wonder. But this is a situation where the poor old bees in the middle of it all, along with the others. Now, the wax contamination is a big issue for us as well. There's a few people now, I hear suppliers trying to deal with people that they reproduce their own wax, that they know where it's coming from. You know, what we're putting into our hives, there's probably Epigard here, and the foggers, and the trickle method, and behaviorol and Apistan. Another thing I should say though, folks, is all these things, they're bad. We don't use them in Ireland anymore, the behaviorol or the Epistans. They're not used anymore. I don't know about over here, but we're on oxalic acid or formic acid is what we're using now. But one of the things that I have to say is, while I'm talking to other people, the beekeepers themselves have a lot to answer for. The label is there to tell you how to use it. And many beekeepers can't read the label, and they don't follow the instructions that's out there. Like we have come across hives, even in Ireland, go back some time ago, where the behaviorol was in the whole winter. And then we wondered why the bees became resistant. You know, we're adding to the problems ourselves. So education is a great thing. I'm very impressed with the education system in these islands when I travel. I think we have a terrific education system, we really have. I mean, we're leading the way in the world when it comes to beekeeping education. I mean, our own beekeeping association in Ireland, the beekeeping situation here for education is brilliant. It really is, and I have to compliment it. I haven't seen other parts, but a few places I've been, it was very bad. Recently, I got contact from Tanzania. I think it was Tanzania. It's on a WhatsApp anyway, and there was a terrific program going on. I thought it was wonderful to see it. Really great beekeeping and great education, and that's to be encouraged. Again, another treatment for whatever it is. But when the wax then comes off, it looks like this. What would you do with that? You try to burn it, wouldn't you? But anyway, you're back to the situation. We hope it all would be burned, but maybe it's not. So it's coming out then for our bees. This is coming out. And then we have to ask ourselves, what's coming out? Do the bees need a gas mask when they get it back again? I mean, it is. We have tested wax, and wax has been, it's not so good at places. So there are issues there. All these are being addressed. Like, I'm maybe talking too much gloom at them, but it's not as bad as I'm saying, but we need to address all these things for sure. Then we have current problems, like, I know this botulism. I remember somebody said you shouldn't give honey to a baby under 12 months. And now I have to tell you, I said this yesterday, I have a fella, he's no bigger than I am, and when he was here, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're waltzing around the room, and this fella won't, soother into the honey, end of story. Didn't do him a bit of harm. He's bigger than I am now. But you don't actually, now I have never actually seen the evidence, but I'm told. But I've never come across it. I've read about it, and I'm sure there's evidence somewhere. I just haven't come across it myself. Then you have the legal antibiotics. Now, some people use these for American foul brood, for the foul broods. There are some countries that extensively they use them for the foul broods. In Ireland, the policy is to burn and destroy for foul brood. That's our policy, end of story. But in some countries, that's not the case. See, nowadays, with the loss of bees, beekeepers are saying, well, I don't want to kill my bees. Can I save them? And it's how they go about doing that. And then, of course, there's a lot of stuff out there we don't know what it is at all. Well, of course, we have GMO, and then we have, sorry, there's another one here. Yeah, new generation of stuff coming. What's coming at us? I don't know the situation here, but most places around us where I live at the moment, the farmers own the land, but they don't actually do anything to it. It's a contractor comes in, or contractors, and they do all the ploughing and the rotavating and the harrowing, the sowing, and then the harvesting. So I actually have honeybees on oilseed rape in the early part of the year, and where I have it, it's the contractor I'm talking to, not the farmer. I deal with the contractor. I give the contractor, at Christmas I give them a couple of jars of honey. It's great. A couple of jars of honey opens so many doors for people, A jar of honey is wonderful for people. But for a contractor, it's definitely wonderful. Because you find out I will know for next year where that rape will be. I'll know about it very shortly. So I'll have my place ready for my bees when I move them to it. But these what's coming at us. The farmers are then, I'm telling them what they can and cannot spray. And they're looking at their labels, and they're getting very conscious of it, which is wonderful. But there was an education program. Before this, they weren't even thinking about it. They didn't pass any remarks on it. But I want to tell them what they're doing, they're looking at it. Nanoparticles and then radioactive substances. Now, in some countries, the person who put most of this together, my predecessor, Giles Ratty, who I thank for this, Giles told me one time that he was in a location where there was a Geiger counter used in an area, and it was clicking beside 2 beehives. I mean, I don't know what the significance of it was, but I was kind of concerned about it when he told me that this was a problem in some of the places he was in. It was quite alarming. What else is out there? Well, look at the stuff coming down the track. But what bothers me most about this is the beekeepers who become inventors and produce their own concoction of brew. Recently, I was in a place where there was 5-gallon drums of a feed for bees for treating varroa in a syrup. And this person made their own concoction. That would worry me greatly. So education is the key to all this. Make sure that what you're putting into your hive is suitable. But there's lots of stuff out there we don't know what's there at all. And I'm worried about the inventors. We're all inventors. We look at new ways of keeping our bees. We're always trying to do things better. But inventing stuff to treat that's chemically based causes me concern. Strategic Objective 4 of the United Nations of FAO states that ensure inclusive and efficient agriculture and food system. I'm sure you've seen this picture before, but it tells a great story. This is what our supermarket shelf would look like when we have honeybees. And it's a very good description of what honeybees and other pollinators as well. But if you remove the bees and the pollinators, this is what they say we'll end up with. So the picture tells its own story. It's a nice picture, but then with the bees, it looks very nice. Without the bees, it's pretty scary. Now, at the moment, biodiversity and the loss of it is a big problem for us. In fact, I read recently here in the south of England, and some of you probably may be aware of it, of people replanting wildflower meadows. I think that's a wonderful idea to plant a wildflower meadow, but people have to donate the land. The European Union, they pay a common agricultural policy. This is another thing, this Brexit thing and your good selves and the European Union, how it's going to work, I'm not too sure, because a lot of money comes to the NBU from Europe. What will happen that in the future, I'm not sure. But the money that's coming out of the European Union at the moment, what they're doing is they're paying a common agricultural policy. They're paying the farmers in Ireland, probably here as well, to keep their hedges nice and trim. So the guy comes in with a hedge cutter and he mows all the hedges down to leave stumps of trees standing between hedges, if he doesn't remove them altogether. So there's nothing there for the birds or the bees or insects of any kind. But then in 2015 they brought in this new invention where they're paying 5,000 extra to farmers to replant the hedge, the top of the field, with wildflowers. Like, to me there's a contradiction there. If you get, they're paying them to cut it down and keep it tidy, and then they're paying them to grow it along the, if the hedges could grow up more, we'd be better off, I think. I know we would, certainly. And it's sad that they're not doing that. We're trying to educate them to think of it a little bit better. Honey adulteration. Etienne Bruno, who is head of the Scientific Commission for Technology and Quality in Apimondia, tells me that the honey adulteration situation is very bad at the moment, really bad. There's a lot of honey out there. I actually get emails from a company in India who tell me they can give me, with cane sugar, they can give me any colour, any flavour, and any viscosity I want, and it'll trade us honey. That's a big issue. It's a big problem at the moment. You know what you're buying. But the local honey, of course, I think is the way to go. But it's a major issue for us, and I'll talk a wee bit in a minute. Now, at the moment, the average production of honey globally is about 1.7 million tonnes. That's a figure that Etienne has given us. Now, I'm not sure how accurate it fluctuates with temperature in different climates, but 70% is multiflora, 30% is monoflora. Now, at the moment, what we have is we have the beekeepers producing honey, they sell it to the wholesaler, who sells it then to a packer, and the packer then takes the honey and sends it out and puts it into jars or whatever, and out it comes. So it's the whole process involved. And that equates to about 67% of the honey of the world. I'd like to see more of what I call the direct sales from the beekeeper out to the shops. I'd like to see more of that if I could. It's not easy when you have a big operation of 20,000 hives, a big honey. It's not simple. But for the small beekeepers, I would be encouraging that. Some beekeepers in Ireland just get their honey in and they sell it to a packer. They don't bother. Now, you know why I think this is, and I only copped this kind of recently. I think it's something to do with the taxman. I'm not sure. But beekeepers are very worried about the taxman. I don't think the taxman could be half concerned about us at all. There's far more to worry about than a few beekeepers. But people are concerned about it. That's an opinion. Now, 50% of the honey in the world comes from 6 areas. 16% at the moment come from China, Etienne tells me. 12% from Argentina, 7 from the United States, 6 from Europe, 5 from Turkey, and 4 from the Mexico Caribbean region. That's the breakdown of the honey at the moment, where it's coming from. So there's lots of areas there that we're not having figures for much at all. The total amount of honey exported, 20% of the world honey is exported. That's 340,000 tonnes is moving around. But a lot of it's coming out is not very good quality. A lot of it is very good quality, but we have to be more vigilant in testing for honey. So we need our beekeepers, need people around. We need to test honey more, to be able to say this is top quality honey. It's very important for us to be able to do that. Of course, we have real honey here, and then this is what we get. I mean, that is a major problem. Look at the colour scheme of it. You know, some of it is a bit too red for me now, to be honest, but the rest of it, you could get away with a lot of it. But it is an issue, and it's a big issue across the world. So what the supermarkets are selling, we have to be careful of. I read recently in the Times, the Sunday Times from London, that there was an article about Manuka honey written by a beekeeper. And he said that the beekeepers in New Zealand can produce on average 1,700 tonnes of honey per year, on average. This is on the Times. You can pick this up on the web. But he also said that 1,900 tonnes of Manuka is sold in the UK alone, and 10,000 tonnes is sold worldwide. Yet the New Zealand beekeeper only producing about 1,700 tonnes on average. And that was the comments. I'm just repeating exactly what was said. But in Ireland, if I go to a pharmacy, I can buy Manuka honey with factor 10 or 15 for about 50 or 60 euros. So that bothers me. I mean, heather honey in Scotland, or heather honey in Wicklow in Ireland even, or Fermanagh in Ireland, anywhere you like. I mean, Peter Molan, Lord rest poor Peter, he died while we were in Dijon in Korea. I knew Peter, and Peter analysed, it was the man who did all the analysis on Manuka honey. And when he came to Ireland a few years ago, I said to Peter, what's the difference in Manuka honey and clover honey from Ireland? I've never analysed clover honey from Ireland. I don't think I analysed anything, only Manuka. But if we took the time to analyse our own honeys, we might be surprised what we come up with the answer. The main criteria that we used to worry about before we had colour, taste, water, fructose, glucose ratio, all the things that we would talk about even for a honey show. But now we have a situation like the residues. This is a big issue for us now. And this is really only in the last number of years that this has come about. And of course, pollution is a big problem for us as well. But then you see we have the things that beekeepers themselves can add to the situation. Wood, paint, zinc, hair, wax, bees, etc. They're all put in by us. These are extras. Recently, we came across honey in Ireland in a churn, a creamery churn, and it had lead. When it was tested, there was lead in it, and the beekeeper lost everything, you see. But it was the way he was storing his honey. In the honey show, a honey show recently where, not so far from where I live, the honey tasted of petrol, where the beekeeper had left a bucket of honey sitting beside the lawnmower. Honey's hygroscopic, so it picked up the scent that was there. And, So beekeepers' education is a situation there as well. We need to be careful. And of course, falsification. I mean, recently I saw frames of honey being taken out that weren't capped. And then they were using a dehumidifier, if that's the right way to pronounce it, to evaporate the water. I thought it was crazy. If they had to give the bees another 3 weeks, they would have sealed the whole thing over, but they couldn't wait. So it was nectar we were taking off. Stricter and stricter regulation. Well, these are happening to everybody. Promote management under organics. Now, organic is a great idea, organic honeys. There are a few people that will say to me, how do you determine what organic honey is? That's a question I will often get. And a beekeeper once said to me, how do I train my bees to go to organic flowers only? And I just thought it was a kind of a good question to be asking. But these are countries at the moment who have organic standards, basically to eliminate a large part of bee loss factor. So that's what they're at. So we need to have a good system going for educating people to promote better quality beekeeping for ourselves, is what we're saying. Production costs, of course, they have the analysis, and then the petrol and the wax and the hives. Everything is good up in price. If you look at some of the prices downstairs today at some of the equipment, isn't it fantastic? I mean, it really is the price of there. I saw a small creamer down there yesterday from a friend of mine. It was 875 sterling. I mean, you're into a good operation there to have that, and it's great to see that people can do that. But again, the prices are awesome, so you need to be getting a good return to be able to have that outlay. This thing here, I have a definite problem with this, young beekeepers. We need more of them. And it's really an issue for us. There's great programs at the moment in Ireland for sure, I'm sure they're here as well, to get more beekeepers involved, and in many parts of the world. And in some of the other countries, they're coming on early. Slovenia particularly is a great program for young beekeepers, really good program. Other countries as well. But this was a figure that Gilles gave me, and he said that in 1950, that the people under 20 had more hives than we have now. Then in 2005, the rule has been reversed, and in 2055, it'll be completely reversed. We're all into the vintage of into 80 years of age. So we're looking. I don't know who's going to reach 100, but there's a few people around at the moment at 90, but they might get there. But it's an interesting statistic to see the way it's going. Now, I want to mention this. This is Dr. Jerry Pisa in the Czech Republic. Jerry started up this international centre for young beekeepers. He called it an international meeting of young beekeepers. That's how it started. And 3 teenagers, 12 to 16, attend this every year. There's about 21 countries attended in 2016, 26 countries in 2015. And there's a lady from somewhere here in the UK whose name I cannot remember now, has saved my life, but she sends 3 young beekeepers every year. She's a great lady. And there's a lady from Wales as well that send, I can't say about Scotland. Ireland, we send them as well, 3 young beekeepers every year. And they get together, their language is, first of all, they're from 21 different countries. Now the English, the Welsh and the Irish can communicate themselves slowly, but they can communicate, allowing for those 3 accents for starters. But you then go into Spain and Poland and the Czech Republic and other countries over there. But it's actually a wonderful program. But it's not just about the beekeeping. The whole social side of it as well is wonderful. It's a great program and it's to be encouraged. And I'm trying to get this now to try to extend it across to the other continents. It's not easy because we have a lot of countries together in Europe. It's easier. But in some of the other continents it's not as easy. But it's something that I'm looking at the moment to see can I improve that a bit. But then when it comes to all this, what's the benefit? Well, just what you have here are the 7 scientific commissions of Apimondia. You have bee flora and pollination, bee health, biology, economy, technology and quality. I'm looking there because I can't see it here. Apitherapy and rural development. And I see Dr. Nicola Bradbury downstairs there. Hi, Nicola. Nicola is the head of rural development. But this is a fantastic structure, a long time in operation. Now, we just need to get it working a bit better. What we added in Buenos Aires, we added the 5 regional commissioners. And the idea is to bring Apimondia to the beekeepers and the beekeepers to Apimondia, to make a greater link for us all, greater harmony among us all. And the way this works basically is we bring us all together under the Apimondia banner and work. An idea I have is to try, and I mentioned it to even talking to Phil about it, that we were meeting, but an idea I have is to try and have an Apimondia representative in every country. That we are doing, that the exchange of information needs to be greater. Now, we have a fantastic website, but we're still not getting the message out there as good as we should be doing, which I'm working on to see can I change that, to get the information that we have and share it with everybody. Information is fine as long as it's shared. We need to know what's going on. But this is the target of what we're trying to do. How am I doing time-wise, Phil? Am I okay? Yeah. At the moment, we have 113 members in 2015 in 79 countries. And you can see there, Europe has 39 members. Some countries have 2 sets of members. In Russia, there are 2 members. There are other countries as well that have 2. But there are some countries who have no members at all. And they're the ones I'd like to get everybody in. I'd like to share the information. And what's happening in one country, I want to share it with everybody. It's not an easy thing to do. And what's happening, I want to get it out there to the beekeepers, because we need the scientists and the research to tell us what we need to do and how we need to do it. And then we need to filter it down to the beekeepers all the way. So the communication, it's okay talking about websites and Google and all that things, but there's many beekeepers in Ireland, I'm sure the same here, who never look at a computer at all. You know, they don't bother. Maybe they never learned. So they're still reading the magazine and the newsletter or whatever it comes out and getting that out there. So it's important to be able to do that, and I'm working on that at the moment, hoping it'll help. We have set up a number of working groups. Now, they're called working groups. We need to get them a little bit more active, and we're working on it. Some of them are a little bit sleepy at the moment, but hopefully we'll get them going again. But give you an idea of what they're doing, what they're supposed to do. The organic beekeeping legislation revision, just to get some sort of a program going about organic honey and organic beekeeping. Bees being declared an endangered species. We have a big problem with our losing our bees. So, you know, and I'm sure you've read this, but in America, the week before last, 5 members of the bumblebee family were declared on the endangered list by the Americans. That was the week before last on Sky News, and I had several television programs on to me about it, but it's a big problem. They're declared an endangered species now. They're on the lost list. Harmonisation of international honey concepts, like what we have, the honey concepts downstairs. But again, it's Yuri Ripkev is working on that one at the moment. Good beekeeping practice for medical grade bee products. Now, that's a very important one. We need to develop that one more. And apitherapy, and although Ethion's leading this, Christine Matescu from Romania is the head of the Standing Commission, but this one has been headed by Ethion at the moment. A charter for international honey trade, so as we know what's actually being traded. We're looking at that at the moment. These are all things that currently have queen rearing and impact on genetic viability. I'm always concerned about, I'm going to show you a picture in a minute about packaged bees. But bees moving, you know, bringing bees, people have packaged bees and it's been a long time in existence and all that sort of stuff. But as long as there's a certificate of health going with the bees is what I'm concerned about, that they're not carrying something we don't want. Bees and pesticides for sure, and GMOs and their impact on the beekeeping sector and how that's going to affect us all. And then we have standards for queen and packaged bees market. This is a big area, the packaged bees business. We take part in many events and discussions in the European Union and different countries. Recently, over this weekend, I'll be talking to ministers in Turkey. Last week I was in Dubai talking to different government ministers. The week before, or 2 weeks before that, I was in Almaty in Kazakhstan, and before that was Russia. So and everybody who goes out there are talking to ministers and government. And governments are now starting to sit up and take notice. Because you see, beekeeping and the loss of biodiversity, it's a good publicity for many governments as well. So they can see the benefit, apart from, there's a publicity end of it as well that they're looking at, you know. Our next big Congress is taking place in Istanbul next year, and it will take place, and it will be a fantastic Congress. And I'll be in Istanbul next week, and I don't pass anyway. So don't be worried about Istanbul. I mean, you could be anywhere in the world now and nothing could happen to you. Ask anybody who lives from Ireland. You know, we know what it's like. This report, I found this recently, and I got Jesus' permission to put it up. This report came out. I'm not going to read it for you, but it just said the Food and Agriculture Organization estimate 100 crops, 90% of our food. Like, I think it's a wonderful statement to have there, to say that. And that wasn't me dreaming it up. So this is something that, you know, it goes to show you how important we need to look at our biodiversity at the moment, of everything that's in it. And of course then we have programs, strategic objective 1 is to help eliminate hunger and food insecurity and malnutrition. And then people who can use honeybees as a way of making a living. Also, these are what we're losing at the moment for the pollination. Apart from the honeybees, other bees as well are going. So they're contributing to the honey. So this is a big problem for us if we're losing our bees at a ferocious rate. In the meantime, the bees are increasingly recognised as agents of biodiversity. And these are the meadows. And this is what I love to see. I remember as a child running around in the meadow when they used to cut the hay with a cutting bar. So I know they're not around anymore. Another thing that we don't have, the one thing that's existing of all the things that's disappearing, Scottish midgets. They're still in existence. What the hell what have you got in Scotland that keeps the midgets alive? That ate you, I believe. I mean, I can't believe that they're still, Scottish people tell me that out on the moors they're being annihilated by the midgets. Anyway, again, rural poverty. You know, there's one half of the world has a lot, another half nothing. And a balance would be nice if we could manage it. And when I was recently, I got an interesting program. In Haiti, we lost a lot of, or I'm trying to find the answer, of all the beekeepers who lost their colonies in Haiti with the last hurricane. And I've asked a fairly wealthy man in Dubai if he'd like to sponsor some hives to send to Haiti. And I'm waiting for his answer. But I mean, the guy is extremely wealthy. I mean, his wealth is incredible. So hopefully I'll give up with an answer. And if I can get him on board, he's into logistics. He's not a millionaire, he's a billionaire. And I'd like to think he might make a contribution to a lot of countries that we need a bit of help at the moment. And he was very amenable when I spoke to him, and hopefully I'll be able to work on it if I can. Again, rural development to get people who are making their own hives. It's a big area, and we need to help people out there to work it. How can we produce more bees? Well, many beekeepers are now, I'm just almost there, many beekeepers are now producing bees rather than honey. This is why in every negative there's a positive. Do you ever hear that? You know, when something goes down, it comes up. And in Egypt, over 200 beekeepers are now supplying bees to the market. Honey is now regarded as a nuisance by some of them. They don't want honey at all, and they were producing honey 5, 6, 7 years ago. Now, no more. Packaged bees have been around for a long time, but now the scale is somewhat different. From September the 1st to October, a cargo plane load of bees arrives in Dubai and Jeddah every day. Every day. When I was told, I didn't believe it. So I saw it personally. An average of 5,000 packaged bees per plane load. An average. The ground handling staff are supplied with bee suits. That's what it's like. And a whole new industry has arrived. That was the plane that arrived in Dubai the day I was there. The man on the extreme left, as you look, is the head man of Lyson, the Polish company. That's Dara Scott, who supplies Hive Alive. Jack Thomas from Man Lake and his assistant. This is Professor Ahmad from Saudi Arabia. And this was the deputy minister in Dubai. And that's the man who brings them in. And that's the man who makes the Apimondia hive. You know the plastic hive that's down to Apimondia? That's from Egypt. That's the man who makes that. But that's what came in. I got into the plane then, and I had a laugh. The captain in the plane, there was about 4 of our crew. And these were the packages the whole way back. But you know what? You know when you go to move a beehive, I don't care how well you seal it up. There's always 3 or 4 hanging underneath, you know. And they'll always come out. Well, the plane was full of bees. They were all over the place. And the pilot says to me, Mr. McCabe, one of your bees bited me on the way over. So he got stung on the neck as he came across. One of the bees bited him. But this was what it was like. And this was in the warehouse, the packaged bees. Major industry. And this was the ground handling staff. I had to take a photograph of them. All supplied by the importer. They all had got. But that's fantastic. I'm wondering, you know, and I saw it. But the question I asked myself was, what are the quality of the bees? I'm sure they're top quality. But I didn't see any license, saw no certificates. I'm sure it's top quality. But it just, these are the questions that a beekeeper would ask myself. Anyway, the question was, can science save our bees? Well, I would say yes, but beekeepers and farmers and scientists, and especially governments, must work together as a team if we're to save not only our bees, but also ourselves. That's what I would say. And I'm spot on time near enough, Phil.
Thank you very much. What sort of forage do they have in Dubai, and what's their beekeeping like out there? That's
a very good question, I have to say, because I was looking for it when I got out there. But they have cedar trees, cedar. And when I saw them, the temperature at the time I was looking was 35 Celsius. I mean, I was melting, literally. But the trees were absolutely alive with bees. I mean alive, these cedar trees. It was amazing. I asked what other forage is available, but it seems to be this is the main. We're now coming into their cool time. Before I got there, the temperature maybe a month earlier was up at 45 to 50, and the wax wouldn't even stay in it was melting. The whole thing was cut up. That's why they're bringing the bees in. They couldn't contain them. But what I told them was that in Russia and in Ukraine, what the beekeepers do when it goes to minus 50, the beekeeper has a bunker built onto the ground. And I visited one of them. The bunker's down there, and it's like a football field set with an air conditioning of 4 degrees Celsius. And the beekeeper who built it, he built it, he has his own bees in, but then he rents the space out to all the other beekeepers. So all the other beekeepers come in and they pay him a rent to park the bees there for 6 weeks while the temperature's minus 30 and 40 and 50 outside. And then as the temperature goes up, they bring them out again. So I was suggesting to the people in Dubai that they do that in reverse, that when it goes to plus 50, to bring in the bees in and put them onto the ground and air conditioning and to work that way. So but it was, what I saw was the cedar forage, and it was fantastic, but I didn't see any other forage. But they tell me they're planting stuff all over the place.
Do we have any other questions for Phil? Oh, sorry. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, could you just wait for the microphone, please? Thank you.
Where are the bees coming from that are coming into Dubai every day?
From Egypt.
Right, okay.
From Egypt, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the beekeepers in Egypt, there's 200 that told me who used to be great producers of honey. But there's far more money in producing bees because there's a lot of bees. I have to say, it's the same in Ireland. We have a few people in Ireland now producing bees, and I remember, 5 years ago, a nuke of bees was cost 50 or 60 euros. It's about 250 now. That's inflation, I call you. Big time. But I mean, that's maybe another opportunity for me in the future.
Thank you. This is really interesting stuff. And I'm thinking there are projects in the world to deal with issues in the world. Particularly, I'm thinking of something like the mosquito eradication projects. And this is of equal importance, really, in terms of the third world countries, bringing them up, and our own nutrition for the future. There are people in the world that are making things happen. People like the Bill Gates Foundation. Is there any connection, or have you looked at any connection between your organisation, so to speak, and the likes of the Bill Gates Foundation to get things done? Thank you.
The answer to your question is yes. I'm starting. I have a few people. I had a few people in Ireland who advised me on international what's happening international for foundations. There are many out there that it's finding the right button to push to get in, the door to open. And I have a particular good friend in Ireland who knows a lot about that area. She's advised me at the moment, and we're drawing up a little program. She actually works with a PCO, a professional conference organiser, and we're looking at the moment at how to do that. Now, I haven't brought it to the executive, but at the meeting next May, when we get to Turkey for a council, it's a project I hope to have to present to them. So thank you very much. It's a good idea. I agree with you, for sure. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.